everyone. So this is a video that I've been wanting to do for a while, and it's taken me a while to really muster up the courage to even start it. This is about my binge eating disorder and the history of my binge eating disorder and the reason for me sharing it. So first of all, I'm going to kind of go backwards and say the reason that I'm sharing it is because when I finally realized that what I was doing was not normal, I started to reach out and Google, because I didn't know what else to do, what I was experiencing, and I found a community of people who were all experiencing some of the same things. They were the same age as me and going through the same types of emotions, and so I didn't feel alone anymore. I felt like there were people who I saw who had recovered from it and had gotten back to healthy, and it made me feel like I could do that too. And it made me really search down deep inside to why my binge eating problems started. And not until pretty recently, within the last year, have I really opened up about that. Even, when I first met Jason, I don't think I told him about it for a while because it was still fresh. It was something that I hadn't quite conquered yet. And now that I've gotten to the point where I feel more confident that binge eating monster is not coming back anytime soon, I'm okay to talk about it. And I hope that by me talking about it, it can help others kind of at least deal with it easier. I'm not saying what I'm going to say is not going to cure you. It's not going to necessarily help you, but it's going to give you hope. I hope that it does anyway. That I was able to get away from it, and I don't really struggle with that anymore. So first of all, I just want to kind of talk about where my binge eating started. And I didn't really realize where it started until, like I said here recently, when I started digging deep to kind of figure out, how did this happen? How did I get there? Was it something that happened in my past? And it wasn't until I was really talking to a patient of mine where we both kind of decided that there's always just an event that can happen when you're younger that kind of shapes what direction you're gonna go. Or it makes you feel a certain way and you don't want to ever feel that way again. So you avoid doing those things because you don't want to feel pain. You want to get away from pain. And sometimes what we end up doing is digging ourselves deeper into pain. So here's what happened. I was a sophomore in high school. I was going into the summer of that year. We had just ended school that sophomore year. I played sports. I played softball, I played basketball, and I really wanted to start on the basketball team. Well, at the end of the basketball season the year previous, the coach at the time had told me, for you to start on the varsity team as a junior, you're going to have to pick up a pace. You're going to have to he basically told me, you need to lose a little bit of weight to get up and down the floor quicker as a guard, because normally I was a forward, but the position that was going to be open was going to be a guard. And it wasn't that he said 5 or 10 pounds is what you need to lose. That wasn't what did it. But that's where I kind of started. So during the summer, I thought, here I am 16, 17 years old. I don't know anything about healthy dieting. I never really paid attention to my diet. I just ate what mom cooked, and that was basically anything. I mean, we had good meals. Sometimes they were healthy, sometimes they weren't. I wouldn't say they were terrible, but they weren't the best. But I never had really gotten really upset about my weight or anything like that before. And so anyway, I started it in that summer, and I thought the only way I know how to lose weight or diet is to basically just eat less and work out. So I started eating a little bit less, and it wasn't significant. I still ate pretty well that entire summer. I worked myself up from not running at all in 2 months to being able to run 5 miles a day. Now, 5 miles a day I know is probably not a good thing. I don't even like running. I did like it then a little bit, but I hate it now, probably because of that. But I would run basically, 3 to 5 miles a day, and that was my entire summer. Well, during the summer, you don't really see anyone, and my family was around me every single day. My boyfriend was around me every single day. So they didn't really see that much of changes. I knew my pants were getting bigger. I didn't feel like I'd lost a ton of weight, whatever. So school's getting ready to start, and I go back to school, And a lot of my friends that went to high school with me are going to be shocked probably that they're listening to this, but this is where it started. I went back to school and people started saying, oh my gosh, you've lost so much weight. And then all the rumors started going, you're anorexic. And that was like such a knock to my mentality, because that was totally not what I was going for. I was going for strong. I was going for, I want to be a starter on the basketball team, so I'm going to lean out so I can get up and down the floor quicker. And I did. I was able to get up and down the floor quicker. I was able to outrun others that I would have never been able to sprint past before. And that made me feel good. I was confident for once. You know, I was really confident in myself and my abilities because I was able to be quicker on the court. I weighed a healthy weight. I weighed 120 pounds and I was 16, 17 years old at 5'6". That wasn't that skinny. And so anyway, people started chitter-chattering, she's anorexic, da-da-da. And all I could think was, I worked my ass off all summer. Like, what did they do during the summer? I don't know. Maybe they worked their butt off too. I worked my ass off, ran every single summer. I chose not to have the cupcake. I chose not to have, you know, the soda anymore. I chose to not have the sweet tea. And I put in the work. And then it was like, you know, you make fun of me because I'm fat, or you make fun of me because I'm skinny. You know, which one is it going to be? There's no happy medium here. So naturally, what ended up happening during my junior year, you know, after basketball season ended, I was transitioning on to softball. And so I started the softball season. It was winter time, it was getting cold, and in the off season we usually practiced indoors and stuff and ran indoors. And you know, at that time, people were still kind of saying that thing, and my dad and my parents were so worried. I remember my dad actually took me to the doctor, and like they weighed me and they did blood testing. They're like, she's healthy, like everything's good. She's actually at a very good weight for her body size. And you know, they were like, well, maybe she has mono, maybe this, maybe that. I'm like, no, I just worked my ass off, okay? I mean, there doesn't have to be something wrong with me. So for the people like telling there was something wrong with me and just not shutting up about it, about me losing weight, I decided to eat a little bit more. And I was like, I'll just put on 5 pounds, and that way people just shut up. And I was so concerned with what they thought. And so I gradually put on some weight. Well, what would end up happening is I started to kind of use the food as comfort. It made me feel better because I felt like when I was eating the food, I was doing something better for myself, because if I gained weight, then people wouldn't make fun of me. So I associated that with not feeling pain anymore. So when I ate the food, I felt like it was something that was good I was doing for my body. Well, when I started obsessing over it was when things just got out of hand. So, you know, as soon as I started putting on weight, guess what? Everybody said, look, Brooke's getting fat, and you know, you hear this and that, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, first it was I was too skinny, and then I was chubby, and now I'm fat again. Okay, so I can't please anyone, and you know, at 16 and 17, you care what others think. I don't care what anyone says or how many times people told me, have confidence, don't care what other people think. You can't help it. That's part of our that's what we're made to do as humans. So I put on the weight, and then I dramatically tried to get rid of the weight because of what was happening on the other side of when I did gain the weight. Again, people chattering, talking, and I felt uncomfortable with myself because I was putting on weight. And that was the first time I actually felt uncomfortable, because I had gotten used to my smaller frame, and then I started putting on weight. I couldn't fit into my pants. I couldn't, you know, do certain things anymore. And that really started upsetting me. And emotionally, I was like, okay, well, I gotta lose the weight. And you know, when you yo-yo diet, it's very hard to put on 5 pounds and lose 5 pounds. So I would like go up 10 pounds and I'd go down 5 pounds, go up 15 pounds, go down 5 pounds. And it was like I was gradually gaining the weight, you know. And by the time my senior year came around, I was doing some crazy, crazy stuff, you know, in high school. And my parents probably don't even know half the crap I did. I mean, I would hide food underneath my bed. I would hide food in my drawers. I had, it was major extremes. So during, you know, Monday and Tuesday, those were like my extreme restricting days, because I would, you know, binge out all weekend. And then Monday and Tuesday, I would be like, I'm not eating anything. I actually had broccoli slaw for breakfast at points because I was like, I can't consume any calories. So that cycle progressed, and then I would binge out 2 days later because my body was starving. I didn't know what else to do, so I had to. So anyway, I yo-yo dieted emotionally, just physically, just a mess. And so I went up to college in Indianapolis, and I had my own apartment. And to be honest, you know, I didn't want a roommate because I'm introverted pretty much, but I also didn't want to have to deal with somebody knowing my binge eating problem. I felt like I was going to have to like sneak out and get food or do things, and that's why I just wanted to avoid it. I just wanted to live by myself, and so I got an apartment in Indianapolis. And I will never forget this one specific time that I was studying. I was completely stressed out, and that I now know that what my triggers were when I was eating or binge eating. But I was completely stressed out, and when I was studying, I found comfort in eating. So I didn't really have anything to eat at my apartment, and I was like, you know what? Krispy Kreme donuts sound good. I live over by the Speedway, and I went up to the Speedway and got a dozen donuts, I think. And I had those in my car. I actually got pulled over on my way back to my condo, or my apartment, and the police officer said he smelled like sweet alcohol coming from my car, and so he did a breathalyzer and all this crazy stuff. And I was like, no, it's, you know, it's donuts probably. He's like, why do you have a dozen donuts at 1 a.m.? And I'm like, because I'm studying and I'm taking them back to my friends. And in that moment, I'm like, I'm sitting here lying to this guy. I don't even have any friends in this apartment complex right now, and I'm taking these back for me. Like, oh my gosh. So even then, I was like, what am I doing? So I ended up not blowing, you know, anything on that, and he let me go. But I get back to my apartment, and I was so stressed out from the studying and from that happening that I ate every single one of those donuts. I may have not eaten the entire donuts, but I ate the icing off. I know that. I ate the entire donuts, even to the point where I was physically sick. And that was probably the one moment where I knew there's something wrong. There's something wrong with me. This is not normal. I felt like total shit the entire, you know, next day as I was taking my finals. I didn't feel well, and the cycle began again. So I started to not eat. Well, the problem was I couldn't get away from food. It was such an addiction to me, and I had to have the food that I had to find another way. So what I ended up doing is extreme exercising. So I thought, well, if I eat all of this, it's okay because all I'm going to do is burn it all off if I go run 5 miles on the canal. So I remember one night I went running downtown Indianapolis on the canal, probably the most unsafe thing ever. And I went and ran, I think, like 7 miles that night because I had binge ate the entire day. And I woke up the next morning and repeated it again. And I remember every time when I was running, I was like thinking this, I kept telling myself, remember this pain I'm feeling right now and how crappy I feel, and try to feel this feeling when I go to reach for the food to binge eat next time, or I go to, you know, do this another time. And it never really went away. I was able to really kind of start overcoming it when I started just focusing on where it was coming from and noticing my triggers. So, you know, my probably junior and senior year, once I got into hygiene school, I really wanted to focus on my health, and so I started taking, you know, a nutrition class. So I had taken this nutrition class kind of after some other binge eating episodes that I don't really have time to go into. But I had taken this nutritional class, and it really made me kind of focus in on what I was doing. So what the instructor had us do was, for a month, we had to write down everything we were eating. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna hold myself accountable. I'm gonna keep a journal. Even though my journal is crazy, I'm gonna be truthful on my journal. So I started writing down everything that I was eating, and I noticed like I would be consuming 100 calories one day and 3,000 calories the next, and then, you know, 500 calories one day and, you know, 4,000 calories the next day. And it made me realize my patterns, and my patterns were my triggers. My triggers were the weekends. My triggers were alcohol. My triggers were stress. My triggers were going home to visit family. And it's not our fault. That's what I had to realize. It's not my fault that this happened. And I had to learn to forgive myself for allowing it to happen. The reason that it started to happen was the fact that when we grow up, we are rewarded with food. How many times have, I don't have kids yet, but I see it happen all the time. If you do a good job, you're gonna get a sucker. Okay, so we associate the good with the food, and we associate love with food. And we were taught that at a very young age. And if you still think about it, we celebrate everything with food. It's my birthday, we're gonna go out to eat here. It's a social thing. So I started to kind of focus on what my triggers were. And once I knew, after writing down the reality of what I was doing to my body and what I had completely damaged my metabolism at that point, after writing that down and writing down my triggers and keeping a journal, what I would do is when I would binge eat, after it would happen, I would write in my journal how I felt at that very moment. And there were words that I can't even describe, to the pits of hell, how I felt about myself. And I don't wish that upon anyone. I don't wish that upon anyone ever, because that was a dark, dark, dark place. And I would sit there in a ball and write this down. I'd say, this is never going to happen again. I'm not going to do this again. I can't let it happen again. And over time, continuing to do it, I didn't give up. Even if I binge ate that week, I continued to write it down, what I was doing and how it made me feel. I remember writing in my phone once I got my smartphone. I remember putting it in my phone, like how I felt when I didn't eat well, how it affected me. And so I'd really kind of overcome it. And I was proud of myself for sticking through hygiene school without really having any issues with the binge eating. I may have had just a little bit here and there, but it wasn't anything compared to my freshman and sophomore years. And so I graduated from college and I moved down to Jeffersonville, Indiana, in a very unfamiliar place. I was dating someone at the time who lived in Jeffersonville, and I just happened to get a job. I was very social, and even though I was an introvert, I had a lot of friends that I liked to hang out with in Indy, and all my hygiene friends that I hoped that I would have been around with forever and worked with. I had to leave them behind because I thought, I'm gonna get married to this guy. And so I moved down here or to Jeffersonville, and everything was pretty good, but I started feeling more alone, even though I was with someone. And if you know that feeling, you could be sitting right next to someone and it feels like you're miles and miles apart. And that's how I felt. It just started slowly getting that way. And my only outlet, I didn't have friends down here. I didn't know anybody besides the people I worked with, and I wasn't close enough to them yet. So, I turned to food. I would actually leave the house and say, I'm gonna go get some groceries. What that really meant was, I'm gonna get some groceries and stop by McDonald's and get 2 cheeseburgers and a fry, and then I might stop by and get some donuts somewhere else and find a way to toss all of that out of the car so you don't see what I'm doing. And it just started again because I didn't recognize my triggers. I didn't recognize how to deal with my feelings. I wasn't feeling love, and the only way I remembered how to feel love was associating it with food. And you might think that's ridiculous, but it's true. It's true. We were taught our entire lives through conditioning. You are rewarded with food. You're surrounded by people you love with food and food and food and food. And the advertisements around us are food, and the additives and chemicals in food is just like telling you to eat more food. And even though I knew, like, this is not right, this is not what I need to be doing, it was, I couldn't stop it. It was just gonna happen. And so that process continued for about 2 years, and it wasn't as serious, but it got pretty serious a few times. And I don't remember how many times I tried to puke and I tried to make myself throw up because I felt so bad. I was so sick from all the food that I was putting into my body that I tried to throw up. And I remember going into work, and one of the hygienists, he was a male hygienist, and the days he'd be like, your eyes look really puffy. You look like your eyes are puffy. You have allergy problems? No, maybe. When deep down, what I knew was I ate a ton of food last night, and it's sodium, it's water retention. I can't breathe, I can't suck my stomach in. It hurts, everything hurts. I didn't want to wake up in the morning because I didn't feel well. And so not only did, mentally and physically, I was just drained, and I was not dealing with the problems. I was eating the problems. And I thought that, not dealing with it would make the problem better, or, the issue would just go away. Well, it got worse. So, the relationship I was in got worse. I got worse mentally, and I completely lost my self-identity. I had no identity anymore. I didn't know who I was. I was confused. I was 23, 24 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm in an unfamiliar place. I was so just confused with where I was going, and I couldn't leave. I couldn't leave this person because I felt like I can't leave because I don't know what I'm going to do. I was stuck. I was hopeless. My parents had no idea that I felt this way. So here comes the day where he asked me to marry him, and I remember the feeling of thinking, like, I don't want it to happen. Like, I knew it was going to happen. I could tell that he was going to, and it was in that instant that I remember, like, physically getting up and walking to the other side of the room and, like, playing with the dogs and, like, trying to avoid it from happening. And because I knew deep down I didn't want it to happen. But I thought, that's how it's supposed to be. People just feel this way, and that's how life, you date someone for 2 years, you get married, and all my friends are getting married, and all my friends are having kids. And so naturally, I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. And I remember he, like, got down next to me and asked me, and I don't even know if I said yes. But I do remember going into the bathroom afterwards and just, like, looking down and thinking, this isn't right. Like, this doesn't feel right. But I kept thinking in my mind, like, it's just me. It's just me. There's something wrong with me. And I'm feeling this way, but this is how everybody feels. It's a nervous thing. It's a new life decision. And that I thought that was normal because I hadn't felt it before. I had never felt that feeling. So we stayed engaged and for a little bit, and things just got progressively worse, and things that people don't know about, and it's not important to know about. But it was just a bad relationship. I was in a bad place, and I couldn't get out. And one day, we were sitting there, and I said, he had always said, if you want to leave, you leave, whatever. So anyway, finally, we made the decision mutually that if we were to get married, we were not going to last. And we both knew that. We were both miserable. And so, even though it was hard because it was what I was used to, when he left, like, walked out the door, and he hadn't moved all the stuff out yet or anything like that, initially when he left and walked out the door, I just, like, broke down, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And I remember laying in the middle of the floor in my bathroom, and I remember sitting there, like, just kind of sobbing, and the dogs were, like, walking around me, and they were looking at me like I was crazy. And I remember just sobbing and thinking, why me? Why did I do wrong? And I kept thinking, there's something wrong with me because, why would he want to leave? And it's me, me, me. And I remember at one point thinking, why, God, why would you do this to me? Like, I haven't done anything wrong. Like, if anything, I feel like I've done everything right, and these things just keep happening. And I remember the dogs, like, sitting there staring at me, and I just kind of, like, stopped crying, and all of a sudden it was like I felt this presence, and I'll never be able to quite bring that to life because I don't know, I can't, there's no way to express how I felt. And, I don't know how long I was sitting there crying. I really don't. But I was to a point where I wanted to not go on with life. Like, I was ready for life to be over. I had no identity. I didn't know who I was. I felt like I had nothing to live for because I didn't know what I was living for. I had no idea. And so as I laid there on the floor, and I thought, who's going to miss me? They might miss me. And I actually contemplated, like, who would go to my funeral? And I thought, what the hell am I talking about? Like, what is going on here? And even then I didn't, like, stop. It was just like, I don't want to go on with life. And I actually started thinking about the ways that it could happen. How could I make my life end, and what would be the best way to do it? And it was such a selfish feeling in that moment because I felt like I was so hopeless. And I just remember just thinking, you know, what's the easiest way to do it? And I sat there and like I said, I don't know how long I sat there. And all of a sudden, I just felt this huge weight just came off of my shoulders. It was like, you know, a breath of fresh air all of a sudden. A feeling that I didn't feel before he left. A feeling that I didn't feel for years. And it was like somebody came up to me, lifted me up, and said, this is not your time, and you have something great to live for. And in that moment, I couldn't explain it. It was the weirdest, strangest thing, but I remember getting up and looking right into the mirror in the bathroom and smiling. And it was like, this is my second chance. This is my second chance at life. This is my sign, because there's something that I am supposed to be here for, and I am going to make sure that it happens. And, you know, I told Jason about this, and he was kind of the only person besides a couple other people that kind of knew about that. And from that day on, I started working on me. I started focusing on what I could do to be the best me. And each day has gotten better. Each day has just gotten so much better. And then I met Jason, and he has been probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And he embodies everything that I am meant to live for, because he represents what I want to be. I want to strive to be the most kind person, the most caring person. And there are still days where I think, how the heck does he put up with me? Because I have bad days. I still have bad days. And, you know, here recently I went through some stuff, and he was the first one to lift me up and make sure that everything was okay. And I resisted him for a long time. And I remember for probably the first 6 months we were dating, I kept thinking there's something wrong with him. And for people who were around me during that time, I think I remember telling my coworkers, like, there's something wrong with him. He's hiding something. He's too perfect for me. There's something that has got to be wrong with him, because I don't deserve this. I don't deserve, and I truly felt like I didn't deserve it. And then eventually he kept doing these little things that made me feel like I did deserve it. So when he made me feel like I did deserve it, I was able to accept it and understand that I did deserve someone like him. And, you know, I had been stuck in this mindset for so long that it was always me. There was a problem with me, and that I was the issue, because I had been in such a manipulative relationship that it's what I felt like. I thought it was my fault and my problems. And so, you know, whenever I was able to forgive myself for allowing that to happen and allowing the things in my past to shape me, I realized that those things shaped me into a better person. If I didn't have those struggles, I wouldn't be able to sit here and motivate other people and tell them, like, when I tell you that you can do it, I mean it. Because if I could get through what I did and overcome that and be able to go through the battles that I did, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, everything, if I was able to do it, anybody can. And that's so cliche, so, you know, I don't even want to say it because it sounds corny, but it is the truth. And, you know, I still talk to people today that go through the binge eating, and it's not about the binge eating, it's about what's causing it that you're not dealing with. What are your triggers? What have you not dealt with that is hiding or lurking in the shadows deep down in here that you're not dealing with? Why do you want to feel better? How will you feel if you're able to close that off and never go back there? How would you feel if you can pick yourself up and smile again at yourself and be able to forgive yourself for allowing certain things to control you and take responsibility for yourself. Take responsibility. You know, I said it's not our fault. It's not my fault that I had these issues. It was all around me, and it wasn't my fault, but I didn't do anything to change it because I wasn't taking responsibility for my actions. So once I started taking responsibility for what was going on and realizing what I was doing was a direct reflection of what I was thinking was okay. So once I started to realize that that's not okay, I was able to reverse the trend and not do the binge eating anymore. And it just gradually disappeared. Do I still have problems with it every once in a while? Yes, but it's never gonna go back to where it was. I won't let it go back. It just can't, because I've changed so much and I'm so far from that now that it just couldn't happen. I mean, I just don't even, it's just not me. And, you know, whenever I was able to forgive myself, that's when everything was just, it propelled forward. When I forgave myself for all of that, for letting myself allow those things to happen, and to give myself the green light to go ahead and move forward with my relationship with Jason, to trust him and accept his love that he was giving to me that I didn't want to accept because I didn't feel like I deserved it. When I started saying, I deserve this, and truly believed in myself and started feeling more confident in myself, you know, I was leaps and bounds ahead. Now, you know, I kind of felt that way when I was a senior in college a little bit, and then it just kind of went down. And he was able to bring me back up and way, way surpass that. So this should be a tribute to Jason video instead of my binge eating story video. But I just have to say that, you know, if you feel like quitting, if you feel like you're in a spot where you don't know what to do, start just writing down what you're doing and what you're feeling, and get those thoughts out there on a piece of paper. So when you get that feeling that I might binge eat, I feel like binge eating, you go and you grab a piece of paper and you write it down. Here recently, I shared this with some people in one of my challenges because I didn't want to share this, you know, publicly. And we were doing our 21-day fix challenge and the PIO challenge. And I was at Walgreens, and I was picking up a prescription, and I just felt like I have to have some sugar. I have to have something. I was just like craving sugar. And so I went over and I picked up some Oreos, and I thought, golden Oreos, man, I used to eat like 3 sleeves of those and throw away the wrapping so nobody would know I did it. And I picked them up and I kept looking at them, and I'm like, yeah, I'll just have a few. Jason was out of town. He wasn't there to be my accountability partner. And so I grabbed them and I was like, all right, I'll check out with these. And I kept walking around, and I'm like, it was like all of a sudden I was like, what the hell am I getting ready to do? Like, are you kidding me? So I actually like stopped right there in the aisle and put them up, and there happened to be gallons of water, and I was like, okay, I have to have something. So I picked up a gallon of water and walked out with a gallon of water and my prescription. So I got home and I took a picture of my gallon of water, and I said, you know, this is a non-scale victory. This is something that will never be measured on a scale. You know, we always worry about weighing ourselves, and this is something that can't be weighed. Being able to accomplish that and walk away from that was a big, big deal. I was having stress, of the prescription that I was getting, I was going through this stuff, and I hadn't quite recognized the trigger. And when I started to walk around and I realized this isn't me, trigger, 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 I put it down. And so anyway, I took a picture of me drinking the glass of water and said, this is my non-scale victory. I was able to replace this with that, and I can say that I wouldn't have been able to do that 2 years ago. So anyway, I just wanted to share this with you, and so you know that whenever I'm talking to you, it comes from a place of hope. It comes from a place of pre-existing pain that I felt. And, I don't do this to be selfish and feel good about myself because I'm helping others. I do it because I want you to feel better. I want you to be in a place where you feel like you have control over your life again. I had lost complete control. I had no identity. I didn't know who I was. I did know who I was, and that was the most frustrating part. When I was a senior in college, I knew who I wanted to be, and I had a clear vision of what I wanted to be, and I completely lost that within a short time frame of getting into the real world and working and bad relationships. And I started surrounding myself with not so great people, you know, and so whenever that started happening, I wasn't growing anymore, and then I started just limiting myself and setting these limits and kept limiting myself. And I mean, there were times I remember we'd be in the car and I would look out the window and be like, what am I doing? It was like I was in a dream, like I shouldn't have been there. And I couldn't get out. It was like I was sentenced there. And I mean, I'm not gonna say it was all bad, because I wouldn't have been there if it was all bad. There were extreme highs and lows. And I know some of you have probably been there, and you just need to understand that it's okay to walk away. And if you have to, even if you don't have any gas in the car, if you don't have, you know, any money, find a way to help yourself. If you have kids too, you have to find your way to get out, or plan an escape, plan a way for you to be happy. This is the only life we get. This is it. There's no going back and redoing things. And I'm so thankful that that night, with me being on the floor and thinking that was it, I am so, so thankful for that night, because even though it was the deepest, darkest pit that I could be in, that I will never want to experience again, I learned so much from that time. I don't know how long I was there, like I said, but I learned so much from that from that moment on, I've done nothing but go up. And, you know, I've said this before, life doesn't go like this all the time. It's peaks and valleys, but the idea is to peak and valley up. So you're going to go up, and then you might have a low, and then you're going to go up again, you might have a low. But guess what? This new low isn't as low as that first low. So embrace those lows. Learn something from those lows and know, hey, guess what? Look how far I've come, and this valley's got nothing on that valley. And so anyway, thanks for listening to my story, and I don't even know if I'm going to post this, so we'll see. And that's not the last you're going to hear of me, because there are some other things that I'd like to talk about in the future. Obviously not as crazy as this, but I just want people to know where I'm coming from whenever I'm talking to you. It's not because I'm just trying to be some beach body coach to make money or anything crazy like that. That's not my goal. This is just my outlet to reach more people, and I want other people to feel the way that I feel. So everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to me, and take care. Bye.